Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 15 of Unlimited Opinions. I'm Adam Bishop.
I'm Mark Bishop.
We are, of course, reading Jake Jackson's Myths and Legends, and this time we're covering the wanderings of Odysseus and his homecoming to Ithaca, the second part of what we talked about last time, about the journeys of Odysseus. This is a pretty short reading, so it should be a pretty short episode, but it was very interesting, I thought.
I'm having a serious case of deja vu.
Yeah, it's almost like we just recorded that intro,
Okay.
almost word for word.
Word for word. You're very talented in being able to say the exact same words in the exact same order
Thank you.
for about a 20-second.
20-second.
Right off the top
I
of
don't
your
know, I
head.
feel like I've been doing it for like almost 60 episodes now.
Yes.
Yes.
You know, I asked off camera before we got... That can is still as big as your head. You have a
You
can
cannot comment on that every time I try to take a
of
drink.
Arizona iced tea
Grape Aid.
grape aid, which is got to be like 32-ounce can. That's like the largest can I've ever seen without a handle on it.
23 fluid ounces.
It's a 2x4,
Yeah.
almost. Anyway, what were you saying? Oh yeah, I was wondering who is listening to this podcast.
All kinds of people.
Because you get some sort of report on like who's listening. I guess.
Well, I can see the downloads for each episode. So if somebody goes and downloads an episode on any platform, I can see basically like their rough location, country and, sort of region. But I don't know who actually listens to it.
Right? Yeah,
Yes.
it doesn't identify the
Oh yeah, no, it doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't. But I don't know. I know who downloads. I know roughly how many people download, but I don't know how many people actually listen.
Oh, is
There's
there
a
a
difference. Yeah, there's a difference because you can just like hit play on any platform. You'll just play it. That's a stream. But I don't know. That. I just know when they specifically download it to their device.
And it's my understanding we're like Pitbull. We're worldwide.
We do have
Worldwide Pitbull.
listeners from various parts of the world. Yes. Yeah.
All right, sorry to go down that discussion
that's all right.
topic, but I was kind of interested to know who is interested in this.
Yes. Well, if you are interested in this, you can let us know and tweet at us
Yes.
at ULMTD Opinions on Twitter.
Now, have we talked about? I know we've talked about the contest, the second T-shirt contest.
Yes, we did mention the T-shirt. I think last episode or maybe the episode before.
Do we reveal what you have to do?
We did.
Okay,
We did.
So it's not a secret.
It's not a secret.
That all they have to do is make a disparaging comment
Yes.
towards the podcast.
If you want to
on
win
Twitter.
a free Unlimited Opinions T-shirt, you can just insult us on Twitter, and
we will give you. We will ship you a T-shirt. But of course, that requires you to insult us and then give us your address,
Yes.
which involves a certain amount of trust.
Yes. Exactly.
Or I guess you always use a PO box.
That's true. That's true.
You're
Yes.
scared of us.
Yes.
For example.
Time to get into the actual episode content here.
Yes.
And so we start off, of course, with Odysseus coming back to Ithaca. He wakes up on the shores of Ithaca. Of course, in the last episode, we talked about all his journeys and how he was gone for 10 years after already being in Troy for 10 years, fighting the war. And so he journeyed.
Over half that time, he's just like hanging out with some chicks.
Yes, yes. Particularly Calypso. He stayed with Calypso for 7 years, and he battles all sorts of monsters. And so he finally ends up on the shores of Ithaca. And he wakes up on the beach in a heavy mist, and a shepherd came to him, asking why he'd come to these shores. And Odysseus told a fantastic, untrue story, and the shepherd then revealed herself to be Athena, and she was impressed with Odysseus' craftiness. She told him that she had hidden his form and helped him to hide his treasures, for Ithaca was not the same as when he left, for many suitors were coming to Penelope, Odysseus' wife, and she was running out of time to keep rejecting them. The suitors
10
had...
years, yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. The suitors said...
I'm going to be working on this loom, this thing, for my father-in-law. Once that's done, I'll pick one of
Yes.
you. And then she works on it for hours every day, and then at night she tears it apart.
Yes, I will describe that.
They are so stupid.
We haven't even gotten to that part yet. I'm still telling the
there.
story.
I'm
You're
there.
skipping ahead.
No, it's not skipping ahead.
Okay.
That has been happening.
Yes, sure.
And these people must be the dumbest suitors in the history of the world. But I guess it doesn't really matter because they're just sponging off her for 10 years.
Yes.
I mean, she's having feasts at her expense for all these people that are living in her house.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah, so as I was saying, the suitors had taken up residence in the palace of Odysseus, taking all that was his. And so Telemachus, Odysseus' son, had gone out to look for news of his father. He came to old Nestor, who knew everything about Troy, but he knew nothing of Odysseus. And Telemachus then traveled to Sparta, where Helen welcomed him, but she had little news. Menelaus then came to Telemachus, telling him that he had heard news of Odysseus from the minions of Poseidon. And Telemachus was overjoyed to hear that Odysseus was alive, and was now determined to remove the suitors and save his mother. In Ithaca, Penelope had told the suitors that she must complete work on a cloth before she would consider marrying any of them. And so she would weave in front of the suitors by day, and then would unravel all of her work at night.
I'm having another deja vu. I think that I've heard this before.
Oh my God, yes, okay. Yes, as you described, and they were growing very suspicious.
Yeah.
And so Odysseus had...
Wait, is there something wrong with your loom? Let me look at that thing.
Oh my God.
And you'd think you'd notice that it's like the same thing being loomed.
You would think.
Or I guess she's doing a different pattern each day. But every day, the next day, there's been no progress.
I guess she wouldn't unravel all of it.
Yeah,
I guess that's why she'd be running out of time. Because I guess eventually she'd be nearing completion because she'd unravel, I guess, 75% of her day's work.
Yeah.
So at least make like she had some progress.
It reminds me of that line from one of the best movies ever made, Blazing Saddles.
I thought you were for sure going to say Roadhouse.
That is one of the best movies, but I'll try to fit in a reference to that. But no one, what's his name? He plays the sheriff. He rescues himself through a bizarre turn of events, and he kind of hugs himself. And he says, "You are so good, and they are so stupid." So she's probably doing that every night.
Exactly. Oh my God.
Come on, 10 years. And then I guess she eventually said she was ill, and
yeah.
When she feels better, she will pick. And then it's going to be on the... Have we gotten to that point where she's got to pick on the Feast of Apollo?
Not yet. That is much later.
Well, it's really happening now.
Okay.
It's mentioned in the book later. But go ahead.
Yes.
We'll have a third episode of Deja Vu.
So Odysseus had then come to the cottage of the swineherd Eumaeus, telling him that he had heard news of Odysseus, and Eumaeus was overjoyed and went to the palace to get more wine for his visitor. Telemachus was then led to the cottage by Athena by cover of darkness, for the suitors were plotting to kill him.
Did you mention that he is disguised as a beggar?
Yes, he is.
Okay,
yes,
I didn't know if you mentioned
I don't know if I mentioned that. Thank you for pointing that out.
But he is. That's why the shepherd doesn't know it's him. And he's like, oh, it's so great. He's going to be coming here soon. Thank you, crazed beggar.
Yes.
For telling me that. And then he fed him. And I like the description of... Figures that all these bums in the palace or whatever it is get all this food for free. He might as well give this kind of beggar the same amount of food.
Yeah, exactly.
Slaughtered a hog and all that.
And so Odysseus then had a tearful reunion with his son coming to the cottage. They then made plans to restore Ithaca to its former glory with Odysseus and Telemachus at the helm. And so that's where the first part of this story, this sort of setup for what's about to happen, kind of ends. And then we move into the battle for Ithaca. And so Telemachus slipped away in the middle of the night, and Odysseus came to the palace the next day, still in disguise as a beggar looking for work. Autonaus, the leader of the suitors, had made them all a very comfortable life using the servants and goods that belonged to Odysseus. And his request for alms was met with a barrage of rotten fruit and beatings. So Odysseus literally comes to them asking if he can just work for them, and they just absolutely beat him.
Alms for the poor. I'll give you alms. I'll give you 2 alms. My left arm and my right arm. Bam, bam.
That's a terrible joke. Oh my God.
That's what they were doing.
That is true. That is what they were doing.
Contain his rage.
Yes.
To plan how he's gonna get these people all out of his house.
Yeah.
And anyway, go ahead.
Yes, and so then the local beggar Eris, who was in the palace already begging,
a young, healthy guy that is just loafing about, and that's why he's a beggar, as opposed to Odysseus, who's disguised as an old beggar, which is like the modern day youth of today. That just lay about.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes. And so Eris then challenged Odysseus to a duel over their begging competition, and Odysseus then killed Eris with a single stroke of his sword, surprising all of the suitors.
Yeah, all the suitors are like, yes, let's watch these guys fight. And then Odysseus, whack. Oops. I guess that wasn't as entertaining.
Yes, I guess not. So the suitors then suspected him to be a rival for Penelope, kicking him out and beating him again. When news of this reached Penelope, she wished to meet with him, thinking him to be a god in disguise, and they agreed to meet later in the evening. Meanwhile, Odysseus and Telemachus removed the armor and weapons of the suitors from the great hall, giving them to village boys to carry away. Later, meeting by candlelight, Odysseus then told Penelope a false tale of his travels, and she told him the next day was the feast of Apollo, and she was to pick a husband, and she wept with Odysseus, comforting her. Thankful,
hey, baby.
I don't know what to say to that. I don't know what to say. So thankful for his aid, she then sent Odysseus to the nurse Eurycleia to bathe his legs. And Eurycleia had been his childhood nurse. And as she bathed his legs, she recognized a familiar scar, and she cried out, but Odysseus demanded that she tell no one his identity. The next day, the suitors demanded Penelope make a decision, and Telemachus begrudgingly agreed, and so Penelope declared a competition would take place. Whoever could string Odysseus's bow and shoot an arrow through the rings of a row of 12 axes would win Penelope. All the suitors failed to even bend the bow, but as soon as it came to Odysseus, he wired it deftly, firing an arrow straight through the axes. The room went silent, and Odysseus then shot an arrow clear through Antinous' neck. And the suitors attempted to attack with only the small daggers they had left, for all their armor and weapons had been carried away. And Odysseus and Telemachus stood together, killing suitor after suitor.
Now I'm going to interrupt you here.
Yes.
With a reference to Roadhouse.
Of course.
Because Dalton, the protagonist in there, was conflicted about violence because he had, in a previous fight, killed a man by ripping out his throat with his bare hand.
Ah.
So it's kind of similar to this, but that Odysseus shot an arrow into the bad guy's throat.
That was such a forced connection. I don't
know. And then I don't want to give away what happens with the ultimate fight between, the hired ninja guy for the bad guy and Dalton, but has to do something with the throat.
Oh my God. All right. And so after a while, Odysseus and Telemachus tired, and so Athena then flew across them as a sparrow, giving them strength, and soon all the suitors were killed. They then scourged the palace, killing all who had welcomed the suitors, and Odysseus finally greeted his wife, with Laertes, his father, coming to the palace soon after.
Well, wait a second. You skipped what I thought was the most interesting part of this whole thing.
Go ahead.
They didn't just get rid of all the maids that were laying down with these men and the servants that helped these guys. They beheaded all of them and burnt them in a fire that was seen for many miles. I thought that was a pretty interesting...
Yes, that is a pretty interesting detail. I'm sorry that I did not mention that.
Yeah, why would you pass that over?
Yes.
They had a different sense of justice back in the day.
Yeah, they really did.
Because it would have been a huge mess to clean up. I mean, I don't know how many suitors there were, but it seemed like there was a number of them. And can you imagine the amount of blood that they'd have to clean up after this? And because it's all in his living room essentially. Yeah. And I mean, just the thought of that just would tire me out. Just thinking about how much you'd have to clean. It's kind of gross because the body parts and stuff. Because first it's arrows and then it's swords. So you got to figure there's some beheadings, and then they behead all these people. They probably did that in a more sterile environment. I guess probably took them out back and chopped off their heads and then put them in a pile.
Lovely. Yes.
But I mean, the practical of it.
Yeah.
Interesting. I thought it was. You were looking at me like you're completely bored with that.
I was not bored. That was very interesting.
All right, fine.
And so Laertes came to the palace, his madness cured by the news of his son's return. Several more skirmishes followed, but in time, all of Ithaca was Odysseus's. So kind of the last line of this story then says, all agree that Odysseus was beloved by his subjects, the tales of his journey becoming the food for legends which spread around the world. Yeah. And so it's kind of an interesting ending, I think, kind of following all these trials and tribulations, and he kind of sits around for 7 years and finally returns after 10 years. And it's not like he just comes back and it's a joyful reunion. Right. He has a whole lot of work to do. Right. All these suitors just waiting in his house, kills all of them, kills all of the people who helped them, and then fights more battles to claim the rest of what used to be his territory. Right. It's just he really does not have an easy time of it.
Right. In that respect, it's like all of these stories. I mean, I know it's a myth and all that, and of course the gods are involved, but they all have a certain sense of a grain of reality. Mm-hmm. It's not like he gets home and everything's okay. Yeah. He gets home and there has to be a practical consequence for him being gone for 10 years. Okay, what happened to his wife? Well, she was completely loyal to him the whole time, but she had to deal with all these suitors. His dad's crazy. Yeah. Lost his mind because he thought he was dead or whatever.
His mom also died.
His mom died in the interim, which he saw. But then his son's doesn't even know the guy because he's been gone for 10 years, but he still went to go find him. So he wasn't home when he got there. And all these stories are kind of like kind of gritty in the sense that it's not just an easy or a quick victory. It's not a complete. None of them are complete victories. You know, there's always a cost to be paid.
Yeah.
And he and his family paid a terrible cost. So it's not like, well, you know, he was the smartest and best, so he just conquered everybody. And I think that's the real draw for a lot of this, is that it seems, even though they're fantastical stories, there's some reality to it that, you know, if you do go off to war, even if you're a great warrior and a great man, a great leader, and you're very successful, there are costs associated with that. You know, there's some friends and all his people died, you know, through all his travails on the way home. But and of course the myths tend to have higher moral costs. Like if you do something foolish or greedy or to offend the gods or the social structure, you know, the values of the time, then there's really gonna be a lot of suffering. So you know, these stories are just kind of like pretty high stakes morality tales.
And I think what's really interesting, we kind of mentioned this more like in the stories of the Trojan War, but every character is really human.
Yeah.
Like there's no 100% good hero, right? Everybody really has pretty awful flaws that come up time and time again. So it's not like you just have one dude, I'm the best.
Right.
You know, usually if you say that you're the best, you get killed or eaten or whatever in these stories. And, you know, it's really interesting that there's really no one person to root for, right? You really don't want to be 100% behind everybody. You don't 100% support every decision they make. You know, they're flawed, which is very, very interesting.
Yeah, because, you know, all humans are flawed. Yeah. And so I think that's why these are still good stories to learn and why there's still an interest in them. Yeah. So they're like foundational type stories about, you know, morality plays or whatever you want to call them. And it's just kind of interesting. You know, kind of some of it's unexpected, you know. Like I would not have expected him just to behead all of the staff.
Yeah, I was very surprised by that.
I was like, but then again, all right, you know, you shouldn't have made that mistake, because that's really most of the reason why Penelope had suffered for so long, because the staff weren't loyal to him. Yeah, they should have kicked these suitors out and said, "You're not going to stay here. We're not going to serve you. Yeah, get out."
Exactly.
They didn't, so that kind of made the problem even worse.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What do you think about the Greek stories so far?
They're good. They're not done yet.
All right. What is it? Do you like them better than the other ones we've done? What have we had? We've had
African, Celtic, Chinese. I think, is that it? Yeah, that's it.
I think so.
Yeah.
I like the Chinese ones pretty good too.
I like the Celtic stories. Those are really interesting to me.
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, they're good. They're good, but the African ones are too. Maybe I just feel like they were kind of glossed over.
Yeah.
You know, in the book, I kind of feel like there's got to be better stories.
Yeah. Well, the stories told in the African section were more of fables, I think. They weren't necessarily like mythological epics or great heroic stories. They're more so fables.
Right.
Which were good in their own right, but
true,
but different.
Yeah, I don't find them as compelling though.
Yeah. But yeah, there's still more Greek mythology to come.
Yes.
Jason and the Argonauts next time is what we'll be talking about.
You ever see the movie Jason and the Argonauts?
The really old one with like the stop motion Cyclops or skeletons or something.
There's a whole bunch of different stuff.
I haven't seen it, but
there's a mechanical owl. I remember that. If I'm remembering correctly, it was just on TV the other day.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
You should see it. You should watch it. It's very entertaining.
I'm trying to think of a way to tie Lord of the Rings into this, and I just can't.
Well, we'll let our listeners know that we just finished what's the third movie?
Return of the King.
The Return of the King. That long saga of Frodo.
Yes.
Saying we watched it again last night. So that was nice.
Speaking of the Lord of the Rings, I was a guest on a podcast the other day.
You putting a plug in for somebody else's podcast?
Well, I'm on it.
Oh, that's true. Cross marketing.
Yeah, exactly. I was interviewed by Richard Emerson of the Renaissance podcast. He's doing a series on people's favorite books, just general, either content creators or just interesting people, and sort of.
So I take it Lord of the Rings.
Yes, Lord of the Rings was the book I discussed for over 20 minutes. I'm surprised he let me talk that long about Lord of the Rings. It was a good episode, so I highly recommend all of our multitude of listener to check it out.
I don't know what my favorite book is.
Really?
I don't know if I have one. I have one that like as I read books, I have one that I say, oh, that's the best one I've had in a while. But I don't know if I have a favorite book.
Really?
But you definitely, that's the Lord of the Rings.
I don't know, because I was telling him, like, before we started recording, like, it's hard to narrow down. I mean, there's The Hobbit, there's The Lord of the Rings, there's The Silmarillion, like a million other Tolkien books.
Right.
But I think I went with Lord of the Rings that time.
Right.
There's a possibility, we'll talk about the others at some point, but...
Well, what would be a book that would be better than that?
Well, better and favorite are two different things. Because something can be the best without being your favorite.
Why isn't it your favorite if it's the best? That's just stupid.
Well, I don't know. Well, I think The Lord of the Rings is one of the best books.
Right. Well, how can it not be your favorite? Can you have a favorite that's not the best?
I
guess
so.
You have a sentimental attachment.
Yeah,
or something.
yeah. I mean, there's like, well, what would be like your favorite like comedy movie? Is there's like a really, because like chances are it's probably a really stupid movie. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's like the movies that you enjoy probably aren't like the best directed or the best, acting, but they might be your favorite movies.
Oh yeah, but I would consider them the best.
Oh, well, maybe that's just a you thing.
Really?
Yeah, because they might not be the technical best. They might be your favorite. You might prefer them over others, but may not be technically the best.
Yeah, I get that. That makes sense. But
yes.
But I would consider them the best. I wouldn't say they're my favorite if they're not the best. Like my repeated assertion is that Roadhouse is the best bad movie ever made. It's a bad movie. The lines are clunky and it's.
See, that's what I'm saying because it's not.
But it's. I wouldn't say it's a best movie, but it's the best bad movie.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I think my number 2 best bad movie is Kung Fu Hustle.
That is a good movie. I really like that movie.
Funny.
Yes, that's a great movie.
I need to watch that again. And I don't know where that came from. I mean, when we saw it.
Yeah, we watched it. Yeah,
there was just a random on TV, and it's just so funny. It's so weird.
It's a great movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I see what you're saying. But I think if I think something is my favorite, I think that's the best. I don't know. Maybe I'll have to give some thought to that.
Interesting.
But I guess it's similar to like if you have a favorite player or an artist, they may not be the best.
Yeah.
At that skill, but they're your favorite. I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Well, which one is Lord of the Rings both the best and the favorite of yours?
I can't pick. That's the thing.
So what do you mean you can't pick? You just ran a podcast and you said Lord of the Rings is your favorite.
Oh yeah, it's one of my favorites.
Well, what would be the rival?
Oh, the Silmarillion or the Hobbit. Yeah, Silmarillion's great.
Really?
Oh yeah. You've never read it.
I know, but...
And you probably never will.
I will never read it. No.
Oh, it's really good. I have like 3 copies over there.
Are the words different?
What? What is that?
Why would you have 3 copies of the same book?
Oh, well, one of them is illustrated.
Oh.
One of them, let's think. One of them was like the cheap copy that I first got. Maybe I just have 2.
Okay.
I think I just have 2,
you just
actually.
have one that's like illustrated. There's a different kind of version of it, but the words are all the same.
Yes, the words are the same.
The story is the same.
I thought you meant just like the Silmarillion itself. I was so confused what you were asking. Are the words different? What do you mean?
Well,
what are they different from?
Why would you have 2 of the same book? Unless you're going to share one with a friend.
Right, well, there you go.
Yes. I will not need it.
It's a shame.
Not really.
Great books. Great author. Yes, that's complete tangent. We went on for several minutes here.
Very good.
Yes. But I've been Adam Bishop.
I am still Mark Bishop.
And this was the Unlimited Opinions Podcast.
Excellent.
This is a pretty quick episode, 23 minutes.
Thank you for keeping track.
And you will read the Silmarillion at some point.
Never.
Yes, you will.